Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are now live.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Northwest Community Council for August 9th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 6:01. As is standard with the over the camera, the virtual meetings that we have, I'd like to run through the roster of the councillors who are present and just make sure that we have everybody here. So let's start with District 1, Councillor Daigle Gammon. Good afternoon.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, fellow councillors and staff, members of the public, coming to you from the beautiful beach town of Inverness, Cape Breton.
Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome. District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Hello, good evening. Coming to you live from Hams Plain St. Margaret's. Very happy to be here. Nice to see everyone, and good to hear that you're at Cape Breton, Kathy. Hope you're having a great time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor Blackburn, District 14.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Wish I was on the beach in Inverness. Rather, I'm in the Beaver Bank bunker, home of dog toys and stale popcorn. So let's have a good meeting.
There you go. And I am Paul Russell, Councillor of District 15, and Councillor Outfit, Deputy Mayor.
I am here in Bedford. Had dog toys, no stale popcorn. I guess that's something I can aspire to. But we are happy to be here in beautiful, not so sunny, but beautiful Bedford. And good evening to all my colleagues and staff.
Thank you very much. And moving ahead with the agenda, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of July 12th, 2021. So could I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
I'll move, Tim.
Thank you.
Seconded, Lovelace.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelace. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes of July 12th, 2021, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All opposed, say nay. Great. Thank you very much. The minutes pass. The next item is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions, just to make things a little bit more straightforward. I'm wondering if we could move item 15 to after item, oh, wait a minute. No, we don't need to because there are no notices of motion. I was considering moving that later in the agenda, but because there are no notices of motion, we can leave it where it is. Over to the clerk. Are there any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Community Council, there are no requests for added items or additions or deletions at this time.
Okay, thank you. In that case, could I have a motion to approve
that,
the...
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelace. Seconder, Councillor Outfit. And any additions or deletions from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the order of business as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great, thank you. We have an order of business. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. Call for declaration of conflicts of interest. Seeing none, motions of reconsideration is none, motions of rescission is none, consideration of deferred business is none, notices of tabled matters is none, public hearings is none, variance appeal hearings is none. Over to the clerk, do we have any correspondence?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Community Council, we have not received any correspondence through the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have any petitions? And it doesn't seem like we do. Okay, thank you. And we have no presentations and there are no information items brought forward. Item 13.1.1 already. My goodness, that was quick. So this is case 23495, amending the development agreement for 3009 Highway 2 in Fall River. We have Peter Nightingale with us. Do we have a staff presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I did prepare a short 4-slide presentation. This is just first reading, so just to give a brief overview of the proposal and the request for amendment, if council so wishes. If not, I'm also happy to just answer any questions you may have. I'll leave that up to wishes of council.
Okay, council, what is your wish?
I'm good with 4 slides. I wouldn't
Okay.
mind seeing it.
Super. Thank you. Peter, the floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of Community Council. Just bear with me. You should be seeing that presentation. If you'll just let me know if you can see that all right.
We do. Thank you very much.
Very good. So yes, so I'm Peter Nightingale. I'm a planner with the Rural Policy and Planning Applications team. And I'm here this evening regarding case 23495, which is a request for a substantive amendment to the existing development agreement for the Inn on the Lake property in Fall River. This property is located at 3009 Highway 2 in Fall River, right where highways 102 and 118 and Highway 2 all converge. And this property is on Lake Thomas in Fall River. This property has an existing development agreement, which was approved by Northwest Community Council in 2015. And the existing agreement allows for the construction of an addition at the rear of the existing Inn on the Lake building. And the DA gives 2 options for developing this property. The addition can be constructed with up to 75 residential units, and the existing hotel use in the existing main building can be retained, or the entirety of the property can be redeveloped as a multi-unit residential. So under that scenario, the hotel use would be converted to residential. So within the entire building, you would have 91 residential units. The DA also allows for the addition of a dwelling unit in a detached garage building on the property. And it allows for just shy of 1,400 square feet of commercial space in the main building. So the existing agreement required construction to begin on this within 5 years of the existing agreement being registered with the Land Registration Office, which means construction would have had to start on or before March 16th, 2021. As that did not happen, the proponent has requested a time extension to allow a further 5 years for construction to commence, and then and also extending the completion date by 5 years. There are no other changes to propose to this development. They're not asking for any changes in the use or the building, anything like that. It's simply a time extension. So with that very quick overview, but this evening we're recommending that Northwest Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed amending agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report, to grant a time extension for the construction commencement and completion dates, and schedule a public hearing. So that was just a very high level overview, but I'm more than happy to answer questions that councillors may have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. As is the standard practice, please indicate in the chat if you would like to ask any questions of Peter. And Councillor Daigle-Gammon, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Peter. I know that this has gone through quite an extensive review previously when it was previously approved, and there were a lot of community concerns around it being on the lake and the enjoyment of the lake, and worried about septic, and there were a lot of things that you guys have worked through. I know. Is it confidential, or can we know why it didn't start? Was this a COVID related reason why that the extension needs to be done?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor's question. So when we have a planning application, we look at the ask and we review it against policy. So, the reason for the extension, there's no real policy considerations there, so it doesn't really form part of a recommendation, but that is a question that came up from several members of the public. And so we did ask the applicant if there was a specific reason for the extension, and the details we got were just that there were delays in construction. COVID caused a bit of a delay on things like that. So that was the indication that we got from the proponent. That's what they told us for the reason for requesting the extension, and that's the information I have about that. But that's certainly a question at the public hearing, which I think could be put to the proponent, certainly.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Chair, may I have a follow-up question?
Absolutely. You've got 3.5 minutes.
Wow, that's great. I'm out of practice. Been on vacation for a couple of days. So this is actually just a matter of process, due process for this motion, because then it's first reading, as you say, and then it goes to a public hearing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. Yes, so if council gives first reading to this item this evening, then we would go ahead and schedule a public hearing. Typically, that would be at the following meeting. So hopefully that would be in September. Prior to public hearing, we would do a mail out to property owners. For this application, it would be all around Lake Thomas. That was the notification area that we chose. So it's quite an extensive mailing list. And also do our regular advertisements in the paper and whatnot to notify of that public hearing. And then at the public hearing, of course, we can certainly go into more detail about the policy analysis and considerations, what we looked at, certainly what we heard from the public as part of the engagement. We could go into all those details, certainly.
Great, thank you. In terms of notification of the public, so we don't have a local paper anymore, but there is an online news that is the Laker News. Would we be able to advertise in that so that as many people as possible will know about it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. When it comes to newspaper advertisements for public hearings, there are some very specific requirements in the HRM charter in terms of the spacing, the number of advertisements they have to run and the spacing of them. So off the top of my head, I don't know the exact intervals, but typically the community papers aren't published frequently enough to allow us to meet the charter requirements, which is why we always end up advertising in the Chronicle Herald. It's the only newspaper that circulates with enough frequency that we can actually meet the legal obligation to notify at the required frequency. So that's why we go with the Herald. Now, I guess in terms of running an additional ad, sort of in addition to our required notices that we run in the Herald, perhaps I could defer that to Miss Langell if I think she's online here, whether it's something we could consider or.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Thea.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the local papers, we have not been utilizing them for public hearings for a range of reasons, one of which is the one that Peter just outlined in terms of their frequency, not being able to meet our legislative requirements. The other thing we have to be really mindful of is the cost of these advertisements are covered by the applicants, and we do ask for an advertising deposit at the beginning. That is used to cover the cost of the Herald ads as well as the mail out. With this particular one, we can reassure you that it will be advertised in the Herald. It's also on our website, and we've done a fairly extensive notification area. We're actually using the same notification area for the mail out that we did with the original application. We have over time looked at the local papers, but in some cases some work and some don't, so we have to kind of be consistent, and at the moment to stay consistent is to not use them at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Daigle-Gammon, you are absolutely free to contact Pat with the Laker and mention it to him. It could make an interesting story that could act as an ad for an ad on itself.
I most certainly will, Mr. Chair.
Good stuff. Councillor Outfit.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chair, thank you. I always ask this when these extensions come forward. The default is you have a 5-year contract and the extended 5 years. But Peter, was any consideration given to making this less than 5 years? I mean, obviously COVID slowed things down a little, but we're also in a situation where interest rates are low and demand for housing is high. And I'm just wondering if there was any discussion with maybe extending this just by 1 or 2 years to try and keep the project moving.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor's question. So I guess the main reason that we put this deadline or sort of a sunset clause in these development agreements is to make sure, if the policies that enable the development change, we don't end up, 20 years from now with an agreement that is on the books that no longer meets policy. So with this time extension, the applicant did ask for a further 5 years. And in looking at that, we considered, are we aware of any upcoming changes in policy that might affect this? Certainly if we knew that there was some big change on the horizon, we might be a little bit more conservative with granting a time extension, because certainly we wouldn't want to put an agreement on the books that, in a few years' time is going to be allowed to go ahead, even though it no longer meets policy. So in this area, in the planning district 14 and 17 planning area, there are currently no anticipated projects that I guess would result in any changes to policy. So, and in and of itself, there is no policy that speaks to how much time we can grant. So based on that, we accepted the applicant's request to extend it for 5 years, and that forms our recommendation to council is to grant that 5-year extension. Certainly, if I think it would be within council's purview to approve an agreement with changes if they felt that 5 years was too long. Or certainly if that's something that council wants us to consider, perhaps we could come back with some more information on that. But in terms of why the 5 years was chosen, it's simply that's what they asked for. There's no policy reason why we can't grant that. We certainly, whenever possible, we don't want to, if they think they need a further 5 years, we wouldn't want to put them in a situation where they're coming back 2 years from now to request a further time extension.
All right, well, thank you. And I certainly believe in having the time limits, because we did have examples in the past in both Halifax and in Bedford where there were no time limits on these, and 30, 40 years out, we still have things that haven't been built and still have approval. So I certainly believe in having the time limit, but I was just wondering if they'd considered less than 5 years. So I accept that, and thank you for the background. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Blackburn. I'm sorry. Okay, Councillor Blackburn or Councillor Lovelace? You seem to be good. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, I guess all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. And that motion passes. They have an extra 5 years. Thank you very much,
I'm
Peter.
sorry, Mr. Chair. Just to butt in here, I'm not quite sure the motion was ever put on the floor.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, you're absolutely
is,
right. Thank you. I normally, yes, thank you very much, Meg. Can I have someone put, now that we voted on it, can I have someone put the motion on the floor, please?
And Mr. Chair, this is just to move it to first reading. They haven't been approved for an extra 5 years.
That's a fair point as well. So thank you.
Right. So I would move, Mr. Chair, that the Northwest Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed amending development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated June 28th, 2021, to grant a time extension for the construction commencement and completion dates and schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blackburn seconds that. Thank you. And now can we vote on the motion that is actually on the floor, please? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, that motion actually passes now that it's been moved. Thank you very much. And we are now on to members of Northwest Community Council. There is nothing there. Motions, there is none. So we are on to item 15.1, and it's a property matter in camera. So we would all move in camera for this. Clerk, how do we do that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's correct. We would just entertain a motion to move in camera, and then we would move over to the Teams link, which has been sent to all members separately.
I move that we move in camera, please.
Okay, I think that was moved by Councillor Lovelace and Deputy Mayor. I think I heard you second that.
Perfect.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, we leave this meeting when we do that. So all in favor of moving in camera, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. We'll see you on the other side. So it seems to me like we have just about everybody back here. Do we have legal advice?
I believe we're just waiting for Meg McDougall. Although where there are no meeting, oh, no, wait, yep, Meg's back.
Meg's back, yep. Okay, good to see everybody made it back here. Councillor Daigle Gammon, would you like to put the motion on the floor, please?
Certainly. I would move that the Northwest Community Council 1 adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential staff report dated July 27, 2021, and 2, direct that the private and confidential staff report dated July 27, 2021 be maintained private and confidential.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
Lovely.
Councillor Lovelace, okay.
Question.
I don't think there's anything else yet. So all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Councillor Blackburn, your camera seems to be covered.
Oh.
And all opposed to that motion, please signify by saying nay. And that motion passes. Thank you. There are no added items. Notices of motion. Not seeing any. The next item on the agenda is public participation. And as a reminder to those watching from home, in order to have signed up as a speaker, the deadline was 4:30 p.m. the business day prior to the hearing, and we have no speakers signed up for today's meeting. So the date of the next meeting is September 13th, 2021. And we are on to item 20, the adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by by Deputy Mayor Outlet. Thank you very much.
Good night,
We
all.
stand adjourned.
Safe
All
travels,
right.
Ken.
Good night, all.
Everyone.
Good night,
Thank
all.
you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Simon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Have a safe
Thanks.
drive home.